What if I told you there's one tiny shift in how you think, just one, that can turn failure into fuel, fear into fire, and pressure into power? Most people never make this switch. But those who do, they become unstoppable. And starting today, so can you. Being unstoppable isn't about working harder, it's about thinking differently. There's one mental switch that changes how you show up in every challenge, every failure, every goal. This switch transforms effort into progress and setbacks into stepping stones. If you're ready to level up your mindset, let's flip that switch right now. Number 1. Shift from outcome to identity. If you want to become unstoppable, stop asking, "What do I want to achieve?" and start asking, "Who do I want to become?" This is the core of identity-based change, and it's the most powerful mental shift you can make. Most people chase outcomes. They say things like, "I want to lose 20 pounds," or "I want to make 6 figures," or "I want to run a marathon." These are fine goals, but here's the problem. They're all based on results, not identity. And when you chase results, your motivation rises and falls with your progress. Let's say you want to get in shape. You hit the gym for 2 weeks, you eat clean, you step on the scale, and nothing's changed. So what do? Most people quit. Why? Because their identity is still the same. They're someone trying to get fit, not someone who is fit. But imagine this. Instead of saying, "I want to lose weight," you say, "I'm the kind of person who doesn't miss workouts. I'm someone who fuels their body with intention. I'm someone who trains because it's who I am, not what I'm chasing." That small shift from outcome to identity changes everything. Why? Because identity drives behavior. When your self-image aligns with your goals, you stop needing motivation. You no longer act out of obligation. You act out of alignment. Habits become natural because they match who you believe you are. This is what separates the unstoppable from the inconsistent. Writers write, runners run, leaders lead. It's not what they do occasionally, it's who they are daily. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to publish a book. The goal is to become a writer. The outcome is just a byproduct of identity. So how do you start shifting your identity? Step 1. Decide who you want to be. Get clear. I want to be a disciplined person. I want to be a creator. I want to be a consistent, reliable version of myself. Step 2. Prove it to yourself with small wins. Every time you take action, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. One healthy meal? A vote. One workout? A vote. One chapter written? A vote. Over time, these votes build a new identity. This is not about faking it until you make it. This is about proving it until you believe it. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And your identity is the foundation of those systems. Once you make this mental switch, everything else falls into place. The outcome becomes inevitable when the identity is solid. So stop chasing outcomes. Start embodying your identity. Don't try to be the kind of person who does amazing things. Become the kind of person who does amazing things. That's how you become unstoppable. Number 2, shift from motivation to systems. Here's a hard truth. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. One day you're on fire. The next you can't even get off the couch. That's why the people who rely on motivation to succeed are the same people who keep starting over. If you want to become unstoppable, you must stop relying on how you feel and start building systems that guide what you do. Think about it this way. Everyone has goals. Everyone wants to be successful, fit, wealthy, respected. The difference between those who get there and those who don't. Systems. The people who win consistently aren't more motivated. They're more organized. They've built a structure around their goals, so they don't have to think about being disciplined. They just follow the process. Let's say you want to write a book. The average person waits until they feel inspired, but someone with a system doesn't wait. They sit down at 7:00 a.m. every morning and write for 1 hour, whether they feel like it or not. Why? Because that's what a writer does. It's scheduled. It's structured. It's non-negotiable. This is the shift. Stop focusing on motivation and start focusing on automation. Motivation asks, "Do I feel like doing this?" Systems say, "This is just what I do." Unstoppable people build habits so strong that discipline becomes automatic. They don't need to negotiate with themselves every day. They've eliminated friction. They've made the right choice the easy choice, and the wrong choice inconvenient. If you want to eat better, don't count on willpower every time you open the fridge. Systemize it. Prep your meals in advance. Remove junk food from the house. Make the decision once, and let your system carry the weight. If you want to get in shape, don't wait for a burst of energy. Schedule your workouts, pack your gym bag the night before, join a club. Commit to something that removes the decision from your daily routine. A system is simply a repeatable process that aligns with your goals, and the beauty of systems is that they don't care how you feel, they just work. Think about athletes, entrepreneurs, top performers in any field. Do you think they're motivated every day? Of course not, but they show up every day because they've built a system that makes showing up automatic. And here's the magic. Once you build the system, it builds you. Small habits, done daily, compound over time into extraordinary results. Not because you were always inspired, but because you were always in motion. So stop chasing motivation, start designing systems. Build habits so reliable, so repeatable, that success becomes your default setting. That's how you gain momentum. That's how you become consistent. That's how you become unstoppable. Number 3. Shift from perfection to progress. Perfection is the enemy of progress, and perfectionists rarely finish anything. Why? Because they're stuck in a cycle of overthinking, tweaking, doubting, and delaying. They wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect conditions. But here's the truth. Perfect is a myth, and chasing it will rob you of momentum. Unstoppable people know this. They've made the mental switch from needing things to be perfect to simply making sure things are moving forward. Let's break this down. Perfection says, I won't start until I'm 100% ready. Progress says, I'll start now and improve along the way. Perfection says, this isn't good enough to share. Progress says, this is better than yesterday. Ship it. Perfection wants to impress. Progress wants to improve. And here's the key insight. Progress compounds. One messy step forward every day beats one perfect step once a month. You don't get stronger by planning the perfect workout. You get stronger by doing the reps again and again, even when they're ugly, even when they don't feel like enough. Every expert you admire, every creator, athlete, entrepreneur, they didn't start great. They started consistent. They focused on getting a little better every single day. They failed, learned, adjusted, and tried again. That's the mindset that builds mastery. The difference between amateurs and pros isn't talent, it's tolerance. The pro has built a higher tolerance for imperfection. They've learned to be okay with not yet. They don't let the gap between where they are and where they want to be paralyze them. They just keep moving. So ask yourself, are you aiming for progress, or are you hiding behind perfection? Because perfection is often just fear in disguise. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. But here's the truth. If you're not willing to look bad at first, you'll never get good. Growth lives in the messy middle, not the polished edge. So here's the challenge. Lower the bar of perfection and raise the bar of consistent. Publish the rough draft. Launch the beta version. Go to the gym even if you can only give 50%. Do it badly, but do it. Because momentum beats mastery in the early stages. Your goal isn't to be flawless. Your goal is to be in motion. That's how you build the habit, build the skill, build the confidence. And over time, the work that once looked rough becomes refined. The reps that felt awkward become automatic. So stop waiting for perfect. Start chasing better. One step, one rep, one improvement at a time. Remember this. Perfection might impress for a moment, but progress wins for a lifetime. That's how you become unstoppable. Number 4. Shift from control to ownership. Most people waste their energy trying to control things they can't. The economy, other people's opinions, traffic, the weather, their past, and it's exhausting. But the most powerful shift, the one that makes you unstoppable, is moving from control to ownership. Control says, this isn't fair, this shouldn't be happening. Ownership says, this is mine to respond to. What can I do with it? This switch changes everything. Because let's face it, life will throw things at you that you didn't ask for. You'll be underestimated, overlooked, misunderstood. You'll face obstacles, delays, and disappointments. But your power doesn't come from preventing the storm. It comes from owning your response to it. You can't control the cards you're dealt, but you can always control how you play your hand. And that response, that mindset, is what separates the average from the unstoppable. Ownership is about refusing to play the victim. It doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means everything is your responsibility. You don't waste time blaming others. You don't dwell on unfairness. You rise up and ask, given what is, what's my next move? Because when you own your situation, you reclaim your power. Think about this. Two people can face the same adversity. One falls apart, the other grows stronger. What's the difference? Not talent, not luck. It's mindset. The one who grows refuses to be defined by the problem. They define themselves by the way they respond to the problem. Let's say your business fails. Control mindset says the market is tough. People didn't support me. Ownership says, what can I learn? How can I adjust? What will I do differently next time? Let's say someone criticizes you unfairly. Control mindset fights to change their opinion. Ownership mindset says, their opinion isn't in my control, but how I react is. When you stop trying to control external circumstances and start taking full responsibility for your internal response, you unlock a new level of freedom. You're no longer at the mercy of the world. You become the author of your life. And here's the truth. Ownership is not a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. It's waking up each day and asking, where am I giving away my power? Where am I blaming instead of building? Where am I complaining instead of creating? You don't need the world to be fair. You don't need everything to go your way. You just need to own your role, your effort, your response. That's where true strength is born. Control tries to manipulate what's outside of you. Ownership transforms what's inside of you. And that's the foundation of unshakable confidence. So stop wasting energy on what you can't change. Start taking radical ownership of what you can. The world doesn't owe you anything, but you owe it to yourself to own everything. That's the mindset that makes you unstoppable. Number 4, shift from control to ownership. Most people waste their energy trying to control things they can't. The economy, other people's opinions, traffic, the weather, their past, and it's exhausting. But the most powerful shift, the one that makes you unstoppable, is moving from control to ownership. Control says, this isn't fair. This shouldn't be happening. Ownership says, this is mine to respond to. What can I do with it? This switch changes everything. Because let's face it, life will throw things at you that you didn't ask for. You'll be underestimated, overlooked, misunderstood. You'll face obstacles, delays, and disappointments. But your power doesn't come from preventing the storm. It comes from owning your response to. You can't control the cards you're dealt, but you can always control how you play your hand. And that response, that mindset, is what separates the average from the unstoppable. Ownership is about refusing to play the victim. It doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means everything is your responsibility. You don't waste time blaming others. You don't dwell on unfairness. You rise up and ask, given what is, what's my next move? Because when you own your situation, you reclaim your power. Think about this. Two people can face the same adversity. One falls apart, the other grows stronger. What's the difference? Not talent, not luck. It's mindset. The one who grows refuses to be defined by the problem. They define themselves by the way they respond to the problem. Let's say your business fails. Control mindset says the market is tough. People didn't support me. Ownership says, what can I learn? How can I adjust? What will I do differently next time? Let's say someone criticizes you unfairly. Control mindset fights to change their opinion. Ownership mindset says their opinion isn't in my control, but how I react is. When you stop trying to control external circumstances and start taking full responsibility for your internal response, you unlock a new level of freedom. You're no longer at the mercy of the world. You become the author of your life. And here's the truth. Ownership is not a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. It's waking up each day and asking, where am I giving away my power? Where am I blaming instead of building? Where am I complaining instead of creating? You don't need the world to be fair. You don't need everything to go your way. You just need to own your role, your effort, your response. That's where true strength is born. Control tries to manipulate what's outside of you. Ownership transforms what's inside of you. And that's the foundation of unshakable confidence. So stop wasting energy on what you can't change. Start taking radical ownership of what you can. The world doesn't owe you anything, but you owe it to yourself to own everything. That's the mindset that makes you unstoppable. Number 5, shift from fear of failure to love of learning. Fear of failure is one of the greatest barriers to growth. It keeps people stuck in their comfort zones, afraid to try, afraid to stretch, afraid to fall. But here's the truth. If you're scared of failing, you'll avoid the very experiences that make you grow. And that's exactly why you must make this mental switch from fearing failure to loving learning. Failure is not the enemy. In fact, failure is a feature of success, not a flaw. Unstoppable people don't avoid failure. They lean into it. They know every mistake is data. Every misstep is direction. Every loss is a lesson. They've rewired their minds to view setbacks, not as signs to quit, but as opportunities to learn, adapt, and level up. Here's the difference in mindset. Fear says, what if I try and I fail?
Learning says, if I fail, I'll get better. Fear says, I'll be judged. Learning says, I'll grow. Fear says, this has to work right away. Learning says, this is one rep in a long process. Every time you try something new, you face a choice. Protect your ego, or expand your skill, and only one of those leads to real progress. Think of toddlers, learning to walk. They fall hundreds of times, but not once do they say, maybe walking just isn't for me. They don't fear the fall. They expect it, because it's part of the process. Adults forget that. We start to treat failure as something shameful, instead of essential, and that mindset kills potential. But here's what happens when you flip the switch. You become fearless, not because you never fail, but because failure doesn't scare you anymore. You stop needing to be right all the time. You stop tying your worth to your performance. You become obsessed with the process, not just the And when you fall in love with learning, you become unstoppable, because nothing can stop someone who's willing to learn from everything. Missed a goal? Good. Now you know what doesn't work. Got rejected? Perfect. Now you're one step closer to the version of you who won't. This is how high performers think. They see every challenge as training, every experience, good or bad, as fuel. They build resilience by putting themselves in the arena, again and again, no matter the outcome. So ask yourself, what would you attempt if you knew failure was just part of the path? What goals would you chase if you didn't fear falling? Because you knew you'd rise smarter, stronger, better. That's the power of this shift. It changes how you play the game. You stop hesitate. You stop second guessing. You show up fully, because you know every experience is shaping you. Stop fearing failure. Start loving the lessons. That's how you become unstoppable. Number 6. Shift from external validation to internal standards. If your confidence is built on applause, it will crumble in silence. If your worth depends on likes, praise, or recognition, then you've handed over your power to the opinions of others. That's why one of the most important mental shifts you can make, the one that will make you truly unstoppable, is moving from external validation to internal standards. Let's break this down. Most people live on feedback. They need compliments to feel capable. They need approval to feel enough. They chase goals not because they matter deeply, but because they look impressive. But here's the problem. External validation is a moving target. What earns praise today might be ignored tomorrow. If you live for the crowd, you'll die in the silence. Unstoppable people flip the script. They don't perform for others. They perform for themselves. They hold themselves to a higher standard than anyone else ever could. Their pride doesn't come from being seen. It comes from doing the work, whether or not anyone is watching. Internal standards are unshakable. They're not influenced by trends, opinions, or popularity. They're grounded in purpose, values, and principle. That's the kind of foundation that can't be moved. Think about it. When you operate from internal standards, your question is no longer, will people like this? It becomes, is this aligned with who I am and what I believe? That shift creates authenticity. It creates integrity. And most importantly, it creates freedom. Because now you're no longer driven by approval. You're driven by mission. Let's take an example. You're working on a project. If you're validation driven, you might stop when people don't react the way you hoped. But if you're purpose driven, you keep going. You improve, adapt, refine, not because someone clapped for you, but because it matters to you. That's how real greatness is built. Here's another truth. Chasing external validation makes you reactive. You're constantly adjusting who you are to please others. But living by internal standards makes you proactive. You choose the direction, you set the pace, you define the rule. And that's where confidence comes from. Not from people telling you you're good, but from knowing you showed up fully, gave your best, and honored your values. So how do you make this shift? First, define your standards. What does excellence look like to you? What does consistency mean to you? What behaviors, values, and habits are non-negotiable, no matter who's watching? Second, practice self-respect. Celebrate the quiet wins. Take pride in the things no one else notices. Did you show up today, even though no one expected you to? That's a win. Did you do the right thing when it wasn't easy? That's a win. These are the victories that shape a rock-solid mindset. The goal is not to be admired. The goal is to be aligned with your purpose, your effort, your truth. Stop living for the world's applause. Start living by your own high standards. That's how you become unstoppable.